This episode is brought to you by Madrone Art Bar. Hey, San Francisco. Looking for a spot to meet new friends, enjoy great drinks, and soak in some local vibes? Head over to Madrone Art Bar. At Madrone Art Bar, art, music, and drinks come together as one. It's not just about those post 9 p.m. dance parties. It's the perfect place to meet your neighbors and make your own story. Try their everyday cocktail menu, featuring 22 unique cocktails, 12 rotating Northern California drafts, and 22 bottles and cans. Plus, enjoy free music daily from 6:30 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. Live piano, guitar, rock, jazz, and DJs. There's something for every taste. During happy hour, soak up the vibrant atmosphere, laugh with their funny bartenders, enjoy free music, and watch local sports teams on TV. Marvel at the intriguing art and the well-lit ambiance, and make friends the old-fashioned way. Madrone Art Bar offers affordability, interactive events, and excellent cocktails. With that signature SF style and state of mind, they're dog-friendly, allow outside food, and have a great parklet for those sunny days. So come on down to Madrone Art Bar and celebrate, because the highest form of art is drinking with friends. If you would like to advertise on Storied San Francisco, please contact us at storiedsf@gmail.com.
It was maybe not so apparent just like on the day-to-day, but when we left and came back, it was like, oh my gosh, like you drive, down the ocean and it's just so breathtaking and so gorgeous. And you're like, wow, this is in my backyard and I can experience this all the time.
That was artist Ellen Lowe from Ask Me SF. I'm Jeff, and this is Storied San Francisco, a podcast about artists, activists, and small businesses that make this city unique. In this episode, part 2 of 2, Ellen tells us about life after she graduated from college. First, she moved to New York City, then to Washington, D.C., back to NYC, and eventually to San Francisco in 2016. We talk about her adjustment to life on the West Coast and why she started Ask Me SF, her side project that serves as a resource for the things she loves about San Francisco. Here's the rest of my conversation with Ask Me SF's Ellen Lowe. Okay, and then, so you did not stay in St. Louis. What happened next?
So I went to New York City and...
You're like 23, 22?
My age?
At the time, yeah.
Yeah, 22, I think.
22, okay. Yep, that's the age
to go to New York. I just got my driver's license, So
okay.
2007, I moved to New York. I did financial services consulting, and that was really poor timing because it was right around the financial crisis.
08. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and so what do you do as a bank when you are having a financial crisis? You get rid of the consultants. So I did not get laid off, but it was a challenging environment. I essentially decided to find another job in D.C., and so that's where I ended up for 4 years.
Okay.
And I think I was a little bit of a snot. I was like, no, I love New York. I want to go back. I did not want to give D.C. a chance, which was really short-sighted, to be honest, but at the time I was just silly, and I think every weekend I would travel back to New York. I would take the cheap Chinatown bus, and actually friends of mine did not know that I moved because I was
from New
there.
York.
Yeah, because I was there every weekend.
She just works really hard.
Yeah, so I would just take the 5-hour bus ride up and down. Because you
didn't really spend time in D.C. when you weren't
I didn't
working,
until later.
Okay.
And I also ended up making really great friends that I'm still friends with now.
Oh, good.
It was a really nice time. D.C. was great.
I don't know if you can talk about it, but did you
at the time?
Did you work for the government or like government related?
No. Well, yes and no.
If you can talk about it.
No. So I was a consultant. So a lot of our clients were government clients.
Got it.
Like the Postal Service.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, I guess it's ish government.
It's always been ish, and it's like even less ish now. That's another podcast.
Right.
Yeah. So you did go officially back to New York after DC?
I did.
Okay.
I did. So after 4 years, I plotted my escape back to New York.
You got like 4-year increments.
Yes.
Like you were in Taiwan for 2 of those, but like St. Louis, 4. That's kind of a thing.
Yeah. I
Right?
never thought about that.
Yeah.
But yeah, so after 4 years, I went back to New York and stayed there for another 4 years. So total of 5 in New York, and it was very fun. I have high school friends that live there, and
Okay.
it was
Do you still go back?
yes.
Yeah. Let's talk now. Let's get really into it, because it sounded like you were kind of like figuring yourself out, figuring your life, and it was very East Coast, especially New York. How the hell did you end up here?
So it's interesting because actually when I had visited San Francisco before, and my husband basically found a new job that was here, and so at the time we were not married, but we were, I think, going down that path, and I was like, this is a really good opportunity for you. I guess we'll move, I guess I'll leave New York.
Had you ever been here?
So I had visited before, but not in a very extended amount of time.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it was still a big change, I think. And exactly what I was saying before, lots of comparisons like, well, I don't know, do you like New York better or do you like San Francisco better? Because I was so in love with New York, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, well, how do you reconcile that, right?
Right. I think that's true for those of us who aren't in show business. Right? Because otherwise the comparison would be LA,
Oh, sure.
New York.
Sure.
But the rest of us, which there's a lot of us, who
Yes.
aren't in show business, and it's like arty types, maybe some entrepreneur types, I'm not sure, but the comparison feels inevitable. Just real quickly, my story is that I'm from Texas, but I went to New York and then for a year and then came here.
Oh, okay.
I was just like, New York, I love you, but you don't love me back, so I'm going to SF. So for me, that comparison is also inevitable.
Yeah, and
know?
I think also for a lot of people, it's like the two big cities, right? I mean, LA is also a very large city, but I think New York and San Francisco, there's inevitably a lot of comparisons because of that.
And density.
And density,
we have
yeah.
that in common. LA ain't dense. It's kind of the opposite.
It's very sprawly.
Yes. So, okay. So, let's talk about that move. Were you
Yes.
excited, or how did you feel about it?
I was excited, but I was also a little concerned that I would not like it. And at the time, because my husband had gotten the new job, I approached my job and I was like, oh, well, would this work in San Francisco? And while they had an outpost here, it was not the same scope of work that I was working on, and so it didn't really make sense. They were very good about it, basically providing a transition, but
Right.
I essentially just came here and was like, oh, okay.
Now I need a job.
Now I need a job.
Yeah.
Now I need to figure out this new city, and kind of feeling a little bit like I'm navigating this on my own.
Fish out of water.
Little
kind of
bit,
thing.
yeah.
And what year was this?
This was 2016.
16. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So, to be fair, also, I did have a lot of friends actually that moved from New York that were a good support network for me. So it's not like I
nice.
didn't know anybody at
Right,
all.
right.
It was much better than I think when I moved to DC, when I actually felt like I really didn't know anybody at the
Right.
time. And so that also, I think, fueled my get me back to New York feelings. But San Francisco, I think, also was a little bit from the lens of those folks that were previously in New York. And so it was this constant comparison, like people like go to parks and sit there. Like what? Like,
Yeah.
like that's like a thing. I'm so confused.
Yep.
And like people wake up at 7. Brunch doesn't mean 2 p.m. Brunch actually means brunch. People actually go exercise and go outside. They're not just nursing the hangover.
They could also do both.
I mean, yes, that is true.
I think as Bourdain called SF a double-fisted drinking town. Like,
Right.
it's no joke. We like to drink here.
Right. No.
Because we got
for
it so good.
For sure. But the other thing I noticed is that people complain about the weather a lot.
Mm-hmm.
You've become San Franciscan when you're constantly complaining, like, even though it hasn't rained for like 4 months,
Yep.
the day it rains, you're like, ugh, this weather is just horrible.
Yeah. It's always 58 degrees.
Yes.
And we'll complain on both sides. We're like, it's too hot. It's too cold.
It's too foggy.
Yeah.
It's
So it sounds like
So challenging.
you were a little, maybe apprehensive is not the right word, but you were like,
a little bit.
we'll do this and see how it goes. And that was 9 years ago.
Yes.
I'm going to say you had a soft landing, right? With those people that you knew, and
Yes.
at least your husband already had a job. Like,
Yes.
okay, let's get you here and get you dug in. So what did you do
Yeah.
without a job?
No, I think it was interesting because I did have a soft landing in the sense that people were here that I knew, but they were working, right? So it was kind of exploration myself, walking around like Land's End and sitting in the park and absorbing like the new landscape, and actually like riding a lot on my bike. I did a lot of cycling in New York, but these hills or something. I definitely got shin splints almost immediately. And
Those fucking hurt.
It was a challenge, but
Yeah.
actually it was really nice to actually enjoy a lot of the nature aspects that in New York you literally can't
It's
on a
just
year
different.
round.
It's different.
It's hard if you want to cycle, especially year round. Here is one of the only places you can do that, and I think that's awesome.
And a good way to see the city, to get to know
Yes.
your new city.
Exactly. And
Well, when
learn the
y'all
different
moved
quirks.
here, did you have any idea? Like, did you have a plan? You're like, oh, we'll see how this goes for X number of years, or
I think that it wasn't meant to. I don't think that we approached it in that way. That this is going to be temporary and we'll reevaluate. Like I think I was when I moved to DC. But I think it was, always this. There's always this pull. I think with New York, especially, a lot of friends of mine. It's like they either move to San Francisco from New York, and then vice versa, and then they come back, or they don't, and there's always this like transient switch, I think. But I don't think that we necessarily went around it in that mentality at first, at least, and I think we were just trying to embrace it.
yeah?
Yeah.
Was there a time, and if so, describe it, where you're like, I like it here?
Yeah, actually, it's interesting because I think it was maybe not so apparent just like on the day-to-day, but when we left and came back, it was like, oh my gosh, like you drive, down the ocean and it's just so breathtaking and so gorgeous. And you're like, wow, this is in my backyard and I can experience this all the time. How
Yep.
lucky are we?
I lived a handful of places before I moved here, and this is the first place I've lived where, because I like to travel, and I'm like, it's the first place I lived where I love coming home also. No matter how good
Yes.
my vacation was,
Yes.
or my travels, I'm like,
That is very true.
yeah, if I'm driving in the gate or whatever, landing at SFO, bumpy ass fucking landing, and I'm like, I'm stoked to be home. First place that ever happened. So I was like, I think this is home.
Yeah, well, SFO is also much nicer than a lot of the New York airports.
Oh
Let's-
yeah, there's that.
To be fair, you get into New York, it's better now, but
Yeah.
it would be like, oh gosh, an assault.
Yep. Okay, does it make sense now to talk about Ask Me SF?
Sure.
Let's hear that story. This is how I found you, or how we found each other, I think.
Yeah.
What the hell?
So, Ask Me SF partially was a response of, when I went to visit work for work trips, and we had a lot of sales folks from throughout the country, and the overwhelming response was like, oh, like, you're from San Francisco. Like, how awful is it to live there? And I was so upset. Like, I felt personally affronted by this question, right? It's like how dare you, right? I don't come here and say, oh, you're from XYZ place. Like, how awful, right? Like, that just, to me, seemed
The presumptuous question of, like, how bad is the crime? And I'm like, can we rewind real fast?
Yeah, exactly. And I think, for one, it's like, okay, I get it. You might consume news. You might have heard things, I get it. But don't start with that, right? Like, and it just made me sad, right? That San Francisco's reputation was so destroyed, or so, like, downtrodden, I guess. And even though it's not like I was born in San Francisco, I've been here for 9 years, but that's nothing compared to a lot of people. And I just felt like I want people who are willing to listen, or maybe are new, or, haven't been here for a while and want to be open-minded. I want to be able to provide them. This is my view of the city. This is my things that I find joyous about living here, and be able to provide that outlet. And I think part of how we got here with the, how bad is San Francisco, is because nowadays what really drives clicks, what really drives that news, is the sensationalist aspect. So it's, how do I get clicks of, like, the crime is really terrible, or, things like that.
Yep.
And you can say sunny things all day, and people are like, nah, I don't want to click
boring.
that. Like,
that's boring.
It's boring.
Yeah,
exactly.
Right. Well, I recently saw, I think it was like a Dateline or one of the true crime shows about the Bob Lee murder. Do you guys remember that a couple years ago?
Yeah.
And I was reminded how, like, before they caught the dude who was another tech dude who killed him, they were blaming homeless people. Like, just the generic, like, oh, there's so much crime and homelessness in San Francisco. Surely it was, and I'm like, it doesn't help. It doesn't help anyone.
No. And I think, like, that's what was just, like, amplified throughout. And there's so many, unfortunately, incidences similarly that happen throughout the United States,
all
throughout the
over
world.
The place.
And why is it that San Francisco gets such a lens on it?
Yeah.
I think because it fuels the narrative, it creates the clicks.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, I'm not a social media expert. I'm not an influencer expert. I'm really
You're not? Then we should end this podcast. No.
Shoot. But I just
I think
feel
you're pretty
like,
good at it.
Oh, thank you. I try. But I guess, to me, it's, I'm just trying to present, if people are willing to listen, if people are willing to be open-minded, and I think I'm just happy to be able to affect change where I can, right? Because
Right on.
it's too easy to complain about it. It's too easy to just be like, this is Fox News' fault, this is XYZ's fault, and things like that. And I just want to, like, kind of put my money where my mouth is and pick up trash, create art,
I love
make
it.
a site that helps people. And if there's 5 people that enjoy it, great. And
It's more
it
than
makes me
4.
happy. Yes.
Seriously.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things I was attracted to so much about what you're doing is I feel like our missions are aligned in a lot of ways. Like, we're not ignoring. It's just like, that's not what we want to uplift. We want to uplift. Like, we've all been here doing the things. A lot of people are just fucking working every day, doing their thing, making it a better place.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, that's always more interesting to me.
Yeah, I mean, like today when I was picking up trash, there was like 3 or 4 people that were like, thank you, like you're amazing. And it feels good, right? But there's also days where I go pick up trash and nobody says anything, and that's fine, because it's not to me about like me getting recognized, me getting this like okay checkbox badge or anything like that. To me, it's just I'm doing my part. I want to see a cleaner street. I want to see a more beautiful city. I want to see, nicer things and for everybody. So, yeah.
I want to end, if that's okay, with your take, and it's so just like, it's just what you do, but I want to hear your words about it.
Sure.
Every season on Storied, I have a theme, and the theme this season is keep it local. I mean, that's like, it's so obvious, but like, but what does that phrase mean to you?
I think for localness, it presents itself in so many different ways, right? Because what you have is your local businesses, what you have is your local people that you run into on the street, right? I think what's really kind of nice about San Francisco is that everyone is a lot more intimate because we're in a small city. We're in the 7x7, right? Fortunately or unfortunately, you can't just, run away and not bump into people. And so I think as much as, whoever is here is able to provide that local take, able to provide that, contribution that is, even at a micro level, meaningful. And so I think, being a local is kind of what you make of it, right? And how you sort of, like, your actions take part in that.
That was Ellen Lowe from Ask Me SF. On the next episode of Storied San Francisco, we check back in with Season 3 guest Josiah Luis Alderete to hear all about his Mission bookstore, Medicine for Nightmares. Episode 10 drops next Tuesday, wherever you get podcasts. Music for Storied San Francisco was created, curated, and produced by Otis McDonald. Aaron Lim of Bitch Talk Podcast is our contributing producer. And the show is produced and hosted by me, Jeff Hunt. Now in the 7th season, we have more than 250 episodes available wherever you listen to podcasts. Check out the refreshed website, which I'm still working hard to repopulate with all the episodes. That's storiedsf.com. If you listen on Apple Podcasts, please rate and review the show. You can also rate us on Spotify. Find us on Instagram and Blue Sky at storiedsf. Thanks for listening. Stay safe, stay weird, stay informed, keep your eyes open, and we'll see you next time on Storied San Francisco. We acknowledge and respect the first humans of the unceded land we call San Francisco, the Ramaytush Ohlone. We condemn the genocide of these and other tribes across the Western Hemisphere. We honor their legacy and history, and we support rematriation and sovereignty efforts.
This podcast is a proud member of the BFF.FM podcast network. Learn more at podcasts.bff.fm.
BFF.FM, best frequencies forever.